he grows up in what is today modern day Massachusetts,
Mm-hmm.
and he grows up within these three warring tribes that are there. So it gives you this idea. There's already complications here. There's this history of these conflicting tribes just in this small area.
Yeah.
Imagine what the entire United States looks like at this moment.
He was the tannest dude in Massachusetts too.
Probably must
I
have
mean,
been.
you know, those Irishmen ain't getting sun up there.
Yeah. You've got me particularly interested in this topic of now I want to start diving into like Native Americans leading up to the Revolutionary War. Just talking with you a little bit about it in the last couple of days has made me think like, I know a little bit about this, but it's such an interesting realm of history.
Even with it's one of the great things I love talking about when people are in town and we're walking along the Hudson there and looking at Manhattan, especially people who aren't from around here and they're kind of taking it in and appreciating that. But like even at the Revolutionary War, like the average American even doesn't understand that New York City was the center of that war. It was the linchpin of that. It wasn't
I didn't know
Yorktown, which ended up being where, you know, Cornwallis got surrounded in 81 by the Continental Army, and that effectively, it didn't end the war, but it effectively ended the war. It wasn't, you know, some of the southern sites, it wasn't Philadelphia, which was the capital and certainly a key place. You had New York, which, you know, sat on this island. If we're looking at camera 4 right here, you know, you got two rivers parting, fortification to the east that creates Long Island for ships coming directly across from Europe, i.e. invaders. And then when you run up the Hudson, you go up there about an hour and you got the greatest turn and spot for a military fortress in the world, which became West Point, you know, at the time because of its high ground and where it was located vis-a-vis the Hudson River. And it's like so much of what happened right here when this looked very, very different.
Very different.
And now you think about the years leading up to that when there was an insane speed of colonial takeover between the British and the French, and then they end up fighting this war, and caught in the middle of it are all these Native American tribes that existed in all these areas right here. And it's not long ago. This is less than 300 years ago. We're going to do the 250th next year. You know, there is history below your feet everywhere. It may not be like quite as noticeable, combination of noticeable and far back as like when you're walking through Rome.
Yeah.
Sure. But there's a significant amount of like, whoa.
Yeah.
Right beneath your feet right here even.
Yeah,
It's an awesome thing to tell.
People vastly underestimate how complicated the pre-colonial world really was. You know, Squanto, I'm sure you know the story of Squanto. That's a fascinating, it gives you a little window into how complicated this world was before the white man was ever even here. You know, Squanto, I think he's born in the late 1500s because he's captured in like 1614 or something like that, and or maybe 1612 when he's, you know, just a teenager. And he grew up in what is today, the late 1500s. Okay. So he grows up in what is today modern day Massachusetts, and he grows up within these three warring tribes that are there. So it gives you this idea. There's already complications here. There's this history of these conflicting tribes just in this small area. Yeah. Imagine what the entire United States looks like at this moment.
He was the tannest dude in Massachusetts too.
Probably. Must have been.
You know, those Irishmen ain't getting sun up there.
Yeah.
But he was doing okay.
And
he was onto something.
And so, you know, when he's I believe when he's a teenager or when he's maybe in his early 20s, he gets captured by a trading expedition and he's brought back to England. Imagine that from his perspective. You're being pulled to an alien realm that's vastly technologically superior to you. Like cobblestone streets with giant ships and what, do they have black powder rifles by the early 1600s? I mean, they had obviously crossbows. I don't know if rifles existed. Like maybe the little hand cannons existed. Obviously cannons exist. I mean, just like think about did the London Bridge still exist? I don't know, but I mean, just it must have been mind blowing for him. So he essentially works in London for 10, or I think it's London, but he works in England for 10 years, and then he's finally freed and able to return back to the Americas. He joins a trading expedition, and they essentially they really do him dirty. They drop him off in Newfoundland, and they're like, this is the closest that we can get you. And he's like, oh my God. So that dude solo hasn't been in the Americas for 10 years, builds a boat, sails from Newfoundland to the mainland, and makes his way all the way back home to Massachusetts.
That's insane.
Solos it,
Built
as far as I know. When he gets to Massachusetts, he finds the 3 tribes are in complete disarray, and they've been absolutely decimated by disease. So this is around 1620 or so, when the first Thanksgiving is 1621, right?
Yeah, he died in November 1622, so we're coming up on
he
the end.
he died on the second Thanksgiving, by the way.
Yeah.
Crazy. So he arrives a few years before the first Thanksgiving, and he finds that his homeland, his own people, his family, they've all died. Most of his friends have died, and the warring tribes that he grew up opposing and hating, they were all decimated, and the land was in complete disarray. Well, what had happened? What have we been talking about? The Spaniards had invaded the Aztec realm, and now disease had spread from Mexico City all the way up the Americas, and had from Florida as well, and had moved towards that northern coast. And just now, 100 years later, it was infecting people in Massachusetts and wiping them all out. And so Squanto returns to find his home like this. So he takes these 3 tribes and he turns them into the Wampanoag Confederation that he is now chief of. Because, I mean, obviously he's the most experienced man. He has so much knowledge of the world now, and he's obviously the most outstanding character in this new land. And this is where I think like this story is just crazy. So one of his informants come to him and they tell him, is it Jamestown? I think
it's Jamestown.
Jamestown. Yeah.
Correct us in the comments.
Yeah, I'm going to get torn up for that. Like I said, my early colonial history, I'm just now getting into it. But they basically come and say, hey, we know that you have a history with these white men. I think that some of these white men, the same people, are living out here on this town on the coastline, and they're suffering. More than half of them died last winter. They don't know how to work the land. This is a completely different type of agriculture than they're used to. They're not used to growing maize and potatoes. And so they haven't figured out the land. And so imagine you're one of these colonists. You're living in this little town. There's Native Americans out there. You haven't been attacked by them yet, but you've grown up hearing stories of what they could do to people. And so you're always kind of weary of like what exists inside that tree line that we can't see, who's watching us, right? And then all of a sudden, this Native American man walks out of the jungle speaking perfect English and walks up to you. Isn't that so weird? Like, how mind-blowing that must have been for a guy to walk out and be like, hello, how are you? Speaking perfect English that they would understand. It must have been just utterly jarring. And Squanto, he felt empathy for them. He was the only native there that we know of, and clearly that saw their humanity and felt compelled to help them because they were suffering, even though they were on their land and shouldn't be there. And he probably knew very well from growing up in England what the English intentions were for this new land was to colonize it and spread out, and yet he still helped them. And so he teaches them how to farm the land and everything, saves that town, and then the next year on Christmas, the Spanish influenza, the European influenza, or I'm sorry, not the next year on Thanksgiving, Squanto dies from that European disease on the second.
Imagine that you make it through everything. You find your way back home. You're one of the most cultured men in the world because you've existed across multiple civilizations effectively, and then the flu gets you.
Isn't that weird that highly important men, that guy's up there and one of the most important people that's ever lived. I mean, I don't know if you had to rank a top 10,000 human beings that's ever lived. He's into the top 10,000. Yeah. And it's like, isn't it weird? It's like people use up their importance quickly and then they die. You know what I mean?
Wuhan, bro.
It's It's very crazy. Like you look at all of the conquistadors, they all die shortly after this great achievement that they've made. You know, Oriana makes it down the Amazon, survives it, does it again, dies at 35.
It's a lot like I guess it's like a wasp or something when they have, not the people, the actual insect, when they have that climactic moment in the heat of battle after this life of, you know, finding all these places to live and building things as a hive, basically being warriors for the tribe of wasps and bees and everything, and then they have to use their stinger.
Yeah.
And it's this ultimate moment where it's like their crowning achievement. And, you know, unless it's the dude mowing his lawn that they just ruin his day, if it's actually another type of species that's more on their level, they kill this thing. And it's like that moment in the movie. And then when they do it, they die.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
It's like they release, it's like post-nut clarity, but you're dead.
Yeah. Like they release their potential.
Yeah,
Everything they
exactly.
have to be great, it comes out and you die immediately
And it's
afterwards.
gone. South Park episode.
How many people does that happen to? It's a lot
Yeah.
throughout history. It's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, or people have these early, premature, very bizarre deaths, like George Washington's death. You know what I mean? He could have lived quite a bit longer, and then he gets
But he was pretty old.
was he
like
I thought-
65, I think.
Okay, 65, but yeah, he could have
Can we
lived
check that? He
longer.
was 66.
Or maybe he was
George
maybe he was
Washington.
I think he was maybe like 67 or something.
Yeah,
but
he was right in
but
that
he
area.
gets what doctors today think was bronchitis, and then they perform all these crazy procedures on him. Yeah, 67. They perform all these crazy procedures on him to try to save his life, and then they just kill him. And
Right.
if they had just left him alone, he might have survived bronchitis. You know, it's just funny.
That's a story of medicine.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
took a
no, it
long
definitely-
time
it definitely
to
is.
get it there.
Yeah.
Maybe if Ben Franklin had come up with something, they would have jolted him to life.
I know, man. That's a rough world, dude.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.